Welcome to the SuccessDay podcast. Here we talk to inspiring HR leaders about the future of HR and people technology.
We know that the technology accelerates. If you want to build something now and you're finished in 3 to 6 months, then you might already be behind. You know, technology is changing so fast.
Welcome to the SuccessDay podcast. I'm here today with Hette Mollema, country lead, Workday Netherlands. Hette, welcome.
Thank you, Bas. Thanks for having me.
Can you tell us a bit about what Workday is doing and your role there?
Workday is an enterprise cloud vendor for HR and finance. And as we today also say, our agents. We will get back to that later, I guess, because it's a lot about AI these days. I'm leading the Netherlands, so I'm country manager for the Netherlands, which means I'm involved in companies who are looking for finance or HR systems, but also a lot involved in our existing customers who are looking to optimize what they've licensed with us.
Thanks, Hette. And we know each other for quite some time now. I wasn't grey.
I was both.
You were already both.
Definitely.
But I think it's already, what is it?
Yeah, 15 maybe, 14.
Yeah. 13, 14 years, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I remember that well. You were with a company called Inalpha at the time, and I was supporting the account executive on their visits and presenting to you what Workday could do for Inalpha. And what I also remember, by the way, you published about the whole evaluation on LinkedIn.
That's true, yeah.
On your personal blogs. It was interesting to follow that as a vendor as well.
Oh, nice, yeah. I got a lot of feedback then. Should you post? Should you not post? And I always followed my own direction.
Yeah,
and,
like I know you. Yeah.
Today we're going to talk about what I call people technology, and you have quite a career in that area. Can you tell us a bit on when you first encountered what we call people technology?
Of course, yeah. It was more a coincidence, by the way. By origin, I'm an auditor, so in more the finance side of things. But late 90s, I got in touch with a company called PeopleSoft that we probably all know. And that was my first engagement with people technology. And I like it.
Nice.
Yeah.
And that was back in the day with on-premise systems, right?
Yes, it was the transition from mainframe towards client server. So that made it possible to do some of the tasks on the computer itself instead of a central mainframe situation. So it was a technology shift at the time. And PeopleSoft was quite advanced. So they were one of the first who adopted client server and brought that to the market.
What did they do different than what happened in the market at the time?
Yeah, so because of the technology shift, they also had the opportunity to make it more user-friendly. I think about Windows at the time. So instead of all the character-based screens that they were used to work with, they brought something called Windows-based. And that made it more user-friendly, which also meant that you could, and those were the first, I think it was around the 2000s, the first versions of managers and employee self-service. So that also, well, it's a technology shift, but it caused different operating models. It created a possibility to reach managers and employees instead of doing everything central in an HR department.
And what was your role at PeopleSoft?
As an account manager, I started for the financial services industry. So I've been global account manager for ING for three and a half years. And ING was actually globally a big PeopleSoft customer for HR, but also for financials.
And then they asked you to join PeopleSoft?
No, it was the other way around. So I came from Exact Software, which is a local Dutch software vendor. Also a little bit HR, but more financials, I would say. Was for me the first time working for an American vendor, but I started as an account manager in the financial services industries. And when we got a bit of success with ING, I was asked to lead that as a commercial team globally.
And when did you leave PeopleSoft?
After 5 years, so a bit of a stint just before the acquisition of PeopleSoft. And then I went back to my roots, which was more the financial side at the time. And joined a company called Hyperion Solutions, also acquired by Oracle. But that was a different focus, and it was also country sales lead team. So those were my first steps into sales management at the time.
Got it. And then I think after Hyperion, you joined Workday already in the early days.
I did a few years more or less as an independent sales advisor. I've done a bit of headhunting, by the way. during those years. And around the 2010, 2011, I learned that Workday was about to cross the pond, they say, so coming from America into Europe. And because of the same roots as Workday has with PeopleSoft, same founders, I got in touch with some people and I said, when you're ready, I'm ready. And I got the opportunity to start in this region from scratch. So without customers, without support. I actually had one solution consultant, Kees Kooijman, retired now. Yeah. So Kees and I started the market here.
Nice. And it was 2010?
So I started to see if it was possible in 2010, and then it was UK first, and then we went in 2011 to the Netherlands. So this year, 15 years ago.
Wow. Yeah, it's always UK first. All the US vendors do that, UK first, and then
it's a language thing, but it's also in terms of adopting technology. So then Netherlands and Nordics are typically the first countries where new technology is being adopted.
And what was your first customer?
My first customer was IMC, traders in Amsterdam. But I remember my first day was actually HR Tech, the first version of HR Tech in Amsterdam, in the Okura Hotel. I've met there with Philips and NXP, who were customers 2 and 3. So that was my first day, and I saw a lot of interest at the time for Workday. It was new, it was fresh, people didn't know it, so there was a lot to explain at the time.
How did the competition react when you come with something new and then sign these 3 big customers?
I think once we signed those big 3, they got a bit alarmed. But initially, I remember that the competition was downplaying it. Like, you can never get into an established market, which the ERP market was at the time. So I think we also had the opportunity to stay below the radar for quite a while. But especially Philips at the time was, of course, I think that opened the eyes of the competition in the end. Yeah.
And why was Workday at the time so fundamentally different?
Again, a technology shift. So Workday was born in the cloud in 2005, and what we mean by born in the cloud, it was we've worked and we've written only one version of software instead of bolting on and mixing and getting a sort of hybrid system. I think what was unique about Workday was it was the only system at the time that delivered a full and truly cloud experience. It was actually also what we needed to explain at the time. So the cloud, is that safe? Can you do that? Is that really where we're going to put our employee data into the cloud? Are you sure that it's safe?
I can remember that, yeah. When I was making that decision, 2017, our CEO said the same. He said, I'm not going to put my data in the cloud.
In the cloud, we'll see what happened.
Yeah. And I had to explain to him, hey, but this is much safer than having it on your own data warehouse.
And still till today, we all learn about those data breaches. Typically, those are homegrown systems by companies themselves, not necessarily the cloud vendors.
Nice.
Yeah.
And the developments from, let's say, 2010, 2011 Workday, and where you are today with the software?
Yeah, I think those are a few transitions. It was, as you said, it was initially really about explaining the cloud. That was our first task, and I think it took us about 5 years or so before people felt. Well, you said 2017, so maybe it was a bit longer, but let's say 5 to 10 years to make companies comfortable by having their data in the cloud. But also to make sure that people understood it was not just a technology transition. So I think if you think about deployments that are successful, it is when companies also take the opportunity to transform their business, to do things in a different way than they've done before. And I remember the first few cloud deployments were not necessarily transformations. They were just technology shifts from having something on-premise or in a data center somewhere, putting that into a public cloud. And if you think now, I don't think companies will see going into the cloud necessarily as a technology shift. They realize that it gives them possibilities and opportunities to work with different outcomes, to involve different stakeholders in the organization, in their processes. But if you think about the last 2 years, we all of a sudden are accelerating by having AI and machine learning into the solutions, where actually Workday had it a bit longer. But I think we all know that when ChatGPT came out, it opened all our eyes. Like, okay, what does this mean for our business? And I think even until today, we don't have a full answer to that. But that's I'm going fast forward here. I realize that. Yeah.
Yeah. So quite some, but I can remember, and I was wrong by stating it was 2017 when I did the selection. It was 2013, 2014. So
yeah.
we need to put a disclaimer in the podcast after that. It was 2014, so it was.
I remember our first meetings as well. Yeah.
Yeah, in the old factory of
Exactly,
an Alpha. But then back in the days, Workday wasn't fully platform because there was still another vendor for the learning part. Recruitment was not ready.
True.
So I think that's also a journey. It's now a full platform, including
No, that's fair to
financials.
say. Yeah, that from a functional coverage point of view, where the initial deployments were really core HR, and yes, absence management was typically included. Performance management was quite advanced early on with Workday. But you're right. I mean, the recruiting and learning solutions were at the time still point solutions. And we have developed them over time to be integral parts of the whole solution of the platform.
And then Workday Finance came, of course.
Yeah, Workday Finance was our first customer. Actually, IMC adopted Workday Financials, but it was a solution that was more or less American-based, as you can imagine. So the first question I asked IMC at the time was, do you feel comfortable being the first customer in Europe, knowing that the solution is not necessarily fitted for the market? I think the most of the development over the years in financials have been done into localization. Yeah, so that takes time. I mean,
nice.
Yeah.
So Workday grew, I would say, from the incumbent to market leader. If I look at the Gartner quadrants, right?
Yes, we have a decade now with Gartner being the leader, and in the last few years also in financials.
Nice.
Yeah.
Can I ask you? Maybe it's a difficult question to ask you, but there are always new technology comes and goes, but also new competition comes and goes. Have you? I can imagine in your role you also evaluate competition. Is there something particular where you think, they have not necessarily having to mention the competition, but they are doing quite some interesting things which we should adopt on Workday side?
Yes, I think one in particular is how employees and managers of our customers are working with the solution. I think when Workday came to the market, it was fresh. It was comparable to internet applications, like we always compared with the Facebooks and Booking.coms, etc. But over time, we also learned that there were new competitors with a fresh user interface that looked more user-friendly to the end users. Not necessarily having the strong foundation, but as soon as you present something and you like what you see, well, then you're tempted to investigate more. I think that's what we've learned from new competitors in particular. So not always, sometimes it was on the functional side of things, but it was typically how to engage with the end user. Yes, for sure. I mean, that's what you learn. And that's also why you need competition. I mean, you need to stay on your toes there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If you look, we touched briefly already on the AI part. And I know Workday is having quite some interesting acquisitions. Can you tell a bit about that, what you are doing and which problems you solve?
So, yes, I think it's important to realize that when you invest in AI, you need and you want to achieve an outcome, a business benefit in the end. Where I see right now quite a lot of bolt-on AI deployments. Typically, there's a business case behind there, so they're trying to increase productivity or to save on cost. Think about call centers, for example, and all the investments that go typically into call centers or summarizing calls they had with their customers. You know, you see some cost savings in particular, not necessarily an outcome, a business benefit. And I think what we're trying to do is with all the AI investments that we're sharing with our customers, we want to make sure that it's outcome based. So there needs to be an end result, a bigger benefit than just we've invested in AI, so we check the box. And then we don't believe in AI bolt-on. You can expect that from Workday maybe. So we think that AI needs to be part of your core foundation. It needs to be lawful, as we call it. So it needs to be based on procedures, checks, everything that you've set into your business processes so far in your solution. That's where you can apply AI. Because if you apply AI on top of your solution without knowing all those validations and all those rules that you have set, then you get lawless agents. And I think that's where Workday tries to emphasize now. So it needs to be outcome based, and it needs to be lawful. It needs to be an AI agent that knows what it does.
Is that, and then in that same line as what you're now stating, is then the discussion best of breed or best of system solved with the introduction of AI?
For us, it's solved. No, I think there will always be, but this is more functional coverage. There will always be companies who come to the market with something that we haven't thought about yet. Or, I mean, we have such a large scope of functionality to cover. There will always be an area where a newcomer to the market creates something smart or something good that we haven't thought of. Well, and then the question is, are we adding that to our own functionality stack? Are we building that? Or are you buying and integrate it and include it in your stack? And that, I mean, you also asked for examples, maybe the last 2 years, acquisitions. We have acquired a few companies that had an extremely good point solution, that they were solving a real business issue. But they were so advanced that for us it was, well, to gain time and to make sure that our customers were benefiting from that, it was smarter to acquire those companies and integrate them into our technology stack than just start from scratch and build it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can imagine. Some of the other vendors make different choices, right? They build from scratch.
Yeah.
And I saw Workday back in the days also would do that, but now accelerating growth.
Yeah, but things are good. I mean, if you think about what happens in 6 months, and we know that the technology accelerates. If you want to build something now and you're finished in 3 to 6 months, then you might already be behind. You know, technology is changing so fast that you need to look around and always make that buy or build solution. I think what we always will do is integrate it into a technology stack. So I see a big risk if you don't do that and think about who should have access to data. How do we make it part of a business process? How do we make sure that the right people are validating certain decisions? The only way to do that is to integrate it back into the technology that we already had.
Yeah, and I think often technology developments go faster than humans can adopt it. That's also the case. If we look at the future and dream a bit, where do you think it's going for people technology?
I think for people technology that we will see a lot of use cases around the usage of AI. We will see agents that really become part of the workforce. We talk about redesigning work for that matter, because you need to decide as a company which roles are fully filled by agents, which are partially filled by agents, and where do we have human beings for good reasons in place that can't be replaced by agents. And at the same time, we always talk about the human in the loop. You know, so think about the recruitment process. You're not going to let a computer decide who you hire. There will always be a human being who in the end makes the hiring decision. He or she can be supported by agents who make work of a recruiter very efficient, make sure that the right candidates come up fast, that so your hiring process is in terms of time frame is shortened. But in the end, it will be a human being deciding for those kind of things. So if I think about the future, it's about real agents being at work, taking certain roles in the organization, and make a real-time, almost flawless company.
Nice. And do you think then that that's a discussion I had recently with the CHRO, that the HR department not only managing the human resources, but also the virtual agents, that becomes an HR responsibility?
I think it is. Yeah. So I'm not sure if all HR departments are ready for that and realize that it's their job to design work. You know, that's what HR does. It's human resources in the end. Maybe we need to change the name from human resources to human and agent resources. But in the end, you're right. I mean, that's the task of HR in the future.
And then shifting from IT, where typically all software is located, more to HR.
Yeah. I mean, it is about how do we divide work. Yeah. Technology is there to support, but it's HR in the lead there.
One question I asked to all the software vendors I talk to, what makes, in this case, Workday different than your competition? Why do you stand out? You can also tell what you suck at, but no.
Yeah.
What makes you stand out as Workday?
Yeah, I think our proposition and our strategy at the moment, where I said we believe that those guardrails that you need to run your business is something pretty unique to Workday when it comes to having that in the core solution. But also the agents that we bring to market now are part of that guardrails. I think we have a unique proposition there if you think about some of the competitors. And as you said, I don't have to go into detail there, but some came from acquisitions. Also, you mentioned learning and recruiting. Some of those competitors have that still in their technology stack, but it's still different technology. If you go under the hood, you will see that there are differences there, that there is duplicates of data in the solution, where we all know that AI will function in the most optimal way if your data is normalized, if your data is up to par. That's it. It falls or stands almost with how good is your data. Then AI will deliver. And I think we have the best platform, the best starting position to apply AI on those guardrails.
Thanks. If you would advise HR leaders that are at the beginning of their HR tech journey, there are quite some companies that are still on legacy systems, and they have to choose a system. What would you advise them in terms of selection? How do you select? And in terms of being prepared, what do you have any advice for those leaders?
Yeah, I think a successful project anyway, it starts with the governance and knowing what you're doing it for. So it should be linked to the company's strategy, because if it's just a technology implementation, it will always be seen as a cost. And yes, it's an investment, so to that extent it's cost, but it needs to be outcome-based, not just for AI, but I think even for your core HR solution, you need to know how it's supporting the strategy of the company. So probably that's where I would start. On paper, which elements in the company's strategy can be addressed by an HR solution? If you can't make that link, it will be difficult already to sell it to the board. The board is only thinking in business outcomes and strategy. So probably that's where I would start. So if you then go to the market, obviously you're interested in vendors who can support that strategy. And then I don't think I would run it by an RFP. We're still seeing that a lot, but more with beauty contests. So make sure that because all of the systems in the end can do the basics. They can all do an absence request, they can transfer people, they can open positions. So don't ask software vendors if they can do that or not. They can. So focus on the specific items that are supporting your strategy case and talk to other customers. I think that's the luxury of today. When I started in 2011, my first customer needed to have calls with people in the US and in Australia to make sure that they get the verification that Workday was a good provider there. But today there's so many. In the Netherlands, we have over 100 customers who can, with the headquarters in the Netherlands, who can tell you about their journey. And it cannot be that your journey is so unique that it has not been addressed already. So I think that's what I will focus on.
And thanks for mentioning the RFP part. We see a lot of RFPs now created by AI. Mm-hmm. The response comes via AI.
It's also coming via AI, so yeah.
And then the validation comes via AI. So there's no human interaction. Last Friday, I had an RFP where we had some questions on the details. Mm-hmm. And the response of the customer was, if you don't think it's relevant, then don't answer. But it was really... not in tone of the entire RFP, and I think that's also a big risk there.
To that extent, I'm not sure if you saw the Financieel Dagblad on Saturday. It was about resume letters or application letters. Yeah. So because everybody's using AI these days, although it was not even 100%, it was I think it was 85% or so. So of the applicants is using the same AI letters. So you can't differentiate anymore if you're applying for a job using AI. So a lot of companies and recruiters now are going back to video calls. That's a sort of beauty contest in the end.
And that's also good. So we talked already about the developments in AI, and everybody's talking about that. But has Workday done other innovations which you're proud of?
Yeah, that's a good one. I think a big transition for us has been, we were always a very closed and proprietary system. Maybe also the nature of dealing with customer people data, making sure that it's very secure. But we also saw that the market was going a different route. So being more open and making sure that the data in Workday in a secure way could be used by other systems is something that I think about 3 years ago, have really changed. So we created APIs, we documented APIs, and we made sure that we were creating tools and technology for our customers to make specific solutions built on Workday with our own technology. So for the end user, it looks like it's Workday, and it is Workday, but it can be very tailor-made towards their specific business requirements. So no generic functionality pieces, but really something that was very specific for their company, so they're able to differentiate. I think that openness and our partnerships with almost every tech vendor in the market is something that has really changed in the last few years, and also allowed companies like SuccessDay to stay close to their customers and to make sure that in partnership with Workday, you create something specifically for them.
Yeah, and that drives innovation and the speed of innovation, right?
Yes, yeah, because you can do that really fast. You know, if you, I mean, there might be an app already in the App Store that you can use, but it could also be something that needs to be created specifically for you. And that means that, as you said, you know, you can stay ahead of the competition as a company.
Another question. We sometimes see companies struggle with their implementation, and because you do this like we do every day, what are early signs to see that a program is derailing?
Yeah, that's a good one. I would say when you forget about outcomes, I described that a technology transformation or a technology implementation, you do that to achieve certain outcomes. And what you sometimes see is that people forget about that. So they're really focused on deploying a piece of functionality instead of thinking about why are we doing this in the first place. What it starts to do sometimes is that people keep systems next to the deployed solution. So if in this example, if Workday would be deployed and people continue to use Excel spreadsheets with people data next to the solution that was meant to be the single source of truth, then you start to realize that you have not achieved your goal. It's not adopted by the end users. And those are early signs, I would say.
Yeah, I think one of my own things I learned when I implemented that at an alpha is I didn't manage the people in the HR department that we would do processes different. So what I found out 6 months after we went live, true story, is that a job requisition was approved in Workday. It was printed out. The local HR manager would sign it. It would be put in a folder into the cabinet.
Oh, yeah.
And it made me laugh. I thought, why?
Yeah.
But I, as a responsible HR person,
Didn't communicate.
I didn't explain. Now we have an auditable system, right? So
yeah, you don't have to do that anymore.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a good point. I have another question. I have 25 million questions, so don't worry about that. And it's twofold. So the question is, what do organizations need to do not to fall behind in 3 years? And twofold is, you have companies that are on the verge of starting an implementation, but you also have companies that are already live on modern technology.
Yeah.
And I can imagine that the answer for both companies is a bit different. So if you start with the first one, you're on the verge of starting your implementation. Let's assume it's Workday. What should you do not to fall behind?
So what I do see in the market is that companies who are in that position is that they put themselves into a sort of isolated room to focus on getting live. And if that getting live means 6 to 9 months, for example, that means that in those 9 months, you have not spoken to your software vendor, you have not met other customers who are maybe on the same journey, you have not met with other technology vendors. So even during your initial deployment, I know that you're trying to reach a goal, but even during that first deployment, I would look around. If there are parts during your deployment that you want to do differently maybe, or you want to include in your scope because you see developments out there that can help to make your goal bigger. At the same time, it should not deviate you too much. So my answer is maybe a little bit ambitious. Keep focus and stay on track, but don't close your eyes. And that's what I wanted to say there with the initial deployments. For the current customers, I would recommend them to stay close to us. I mean, we have a customer success teams who can maybe show you a little bit the mirror, see how much you're using of the application compared to other companies who are in the same industry, maybe same size. And we can give some quick recommendations that get our customers maybe a bit up to speed and stay close to what's happening out there in the market in terms of development. And I think SuccessDay also plays a big role there. It's not just the technology vendor, but I think the whole ecosystem can support customers in making sure that they don't fall behind.
And then, of course, I would suggest everybody to go to the events that you guys organize,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah. We recently had an event in the Netherlands called Workday Elevate, together with our partners, together with the ecosystem. It's good to see that a really large percentage, I don't have the exact number, otherwise I would give it to you, of our customers is showing up there, but there's still a few customers not showing up. Yeah. So the pitfall of falling behind is already starting there. If you don't come to those kind of events, I would see a risk.
The advice I give to both the companies that just start their journey and who are live is embed technology, HR technology or people technology in your strategy. Mm-hmm. Always, you already said it, when you do your business case initially, but I think you should make it part of your strategy. Where does the company going? What does that imply for people?
And that might change over time.
Exactly.
So that's where the link, and I think you're fully right there. That needs to be made. Yeah.
Last question, I think. What's consistently underestimated when you go into these kind of transformation programs?
I think the word transformation itself, what does that mean? It means that everybody's job might and will change. So I think the amount of change and the amount of effort that goes into that in specifically, that's not necessarily technology, but working in a different way. I think we all know that people by nature are not always looking for change. So the resistance that can start to exist should not be underestimated. To get people on the journey, I think the executive support, executive coaching from this is why we're doing this project should be there constantly. I see also kickoffs from bigger deployments where executives show up at the first day and you don't ever see them again. And I think that's when you introduce a risk to your deployment success. Yeah. So stay on top, make sure that you understand that change is big and can have big impact to people's roles and jobs. Yeah. And don't close your eyes for that.
And make it important then, also from top level.
Exactly,
Is there a question I should have asked you, but I didn't do?
No. You may ask if I still like my job after 15 years.
15 I never made it to 15 years at one company.
Yeah.
So.
I hear that a lot, so I had to still 15 years with Workday. And I think the answer to that is simple. I mean, the Workday that was there 15 years ago was addressing different issues than we're doing today. So it doesn't feel like the same job. And I still love this company and this job.
Nice. Thanks for being here. If you want to know more, please go to our website and you can read all about HR technology and see a lot of other podcasts.